body.
Right.
And I would say there isn't. So that's
the woo-woo version is that the brain itself and the body, the physical, the spiritual self, you are merely an antenna that's tuning into the great consciousness of the universe.
But why? But then you have to answer what it. We know what we are made of, so we know how those particles are made of. So why do the particles not
Team deathmatch.
in any way interact with that stuff? Because we interact. We don't. If that's true, we don't only just interact with it. We interact extremely strongly with it. We're interacting with it now.
Yeah.
Every movement I make is an interaction between that
Right.
and
Every
the
thought
matter
you
in my
have.
body. Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything that I move my fingers with, everything that I'm doing
Right.
is an interaction between that stuff and me. So it's a very strong interaction with matter. But we don't see it in all our precision measurements.
Well,
The answer for that, the answer is because it's not there.
the answer is Jesus, and you can't measure
We've
that.
lost the lead.
That may be an answer. But the point is, as we talked about earlier with absolute space,
Yes.
if you can't measure it,
Yeah.
it's not there.
Right. But for whatever reason, for people, there is some incredible motivation to find a divine something or another. There's something greater than this physical being. What is that compulsion?
We've already sort of talked a bit about it. I think it goes to the heart of this question of what it means to be human. So I would say that
Hostile
being
UAV in the
human,
area.
the answer. I don't know. An answer. We are small, finite beings, right, which are just clusters of atoms. As we said before, they're very rare, but we understand roughly how they came to be. And we have a limited amount of time, not actually unfortunately, but because of the laws of nature. The laws of nature forbid us to be immortal. Immortality is ruled out by the laws of physics. But also, actually, what's interesting about, if you look at the basic physics of the universe, going from the Big Bang to where we are today, then the physics is driven by the fact that the universe began in an extremely ordered state. So it was a very highly ordered system. And it is tending towards a more disordered system at the moment. And that's that basic common sense thing that things go to shit. Right? That's basically the
Friendly
second
UAV overhead.
What we strongly suspect, and I would say no, is that in that process of going from order to disorder, complexity emerges naturally for a brief period of time. So it's a natural part of the evolution of the universe that you get a period in time when there's complexity. So stars and planets and galaxies and life
Hostile cluster
and
mine active.
civilization. But they exist because the universe is decaying,
Change your mag.
not in spite of the fact the universe is decaying. So our existence in that sort of picture is necessarily finite,
Enemy UAV
necessarily
active.
time limited. And it is a remarkable thing that complexity has got so far that there are things in the universe that can think and feel and experience. And I think that is the answer. If you want an answer to the meaning of it all, it's that. You are part of the universe.
Blood for blood.
Because of the way the laws of nature work, you are allowed to exist, but you're allowed to exist for a temporary, or for a small amount of time, in a possibly infinite universe.
One of the biggest mind-blowing moments, I think, of my limited comprehension of what it means to be a living being was when I found out that carbon
Look alive!
and all the stuff that
I am
makes
wounded!
us has to come out of a dying
Hostile
star.
airstrike incoming.
Like that alone, that there's this very strange cycle of these enormous fireballs
Enemy UAV overhead.
that forge
Enemy care
the
package
material
incoming.
Contact,
that
contact!
makes flying cars.
Yeah.
Like what? That one alone, that
Friendly
there's
UAV
some
online.
strange loop of biological life that comes from stars, which is like the most elemental thing that we can observe. We see these things, we see the sun in the sky. It's this all-powerful ball of
Hostile UAV
fire.
in the
And
area.
that is where
Cluster
the
mine ready to
building blocks
deploy.
for a person come from.
I know. And they will be from the carbon atoms in our body. That you're right. They all got made in stars, because there's none of it at the Big Bang. There's only hydrogen and helium, tiny bit of lithium to be precise, but nothing else. And so it was all made in stars. And it's probably from different stars. You know, the atoms in the body are not all from one star that took it and then died. There'll be a mixture of
Cluster
stuff
mine
from
deployed.
many stars in your body now. And I agree with you that
The enemy's
what
gaining
more
ground.
do you want?
Push
You
'em
know,
back.
when I see people who go, I want more than that. I want
Changing
more.
course.
You know, there must be
Cruise
more
missile.
to it. What do you mean? The ingredients in our bodies were assembled in the hearts of long dead stars over billions of years, and have assembled themselves spontaneously into temporary structures that can think and feel and explore. And then those structures will decay away again at some point, and in the very far future there'll be no
Enemy
structures left.
UAV overhead.
So there we are. We exist in this little window when we can observe this.
Dropping
magnificent
ammo here.
universe. Why do you want any more? Well,
So I think to people, well, I think a lot of people aren't aware of all the
Enemy
information,
down.
right? And then I think on top of it, for some people, it's just
Friendly
it's
UAV
so
on station.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
This concept of 13.8 billion years of everything to get to
Our UAV is orbiting the area.
it's so overwhelming that they want to simplify it. They want to put it into some sort of a fable structure, something where it's something that's very common and similar and familiar.
Yeah, I agree, but I think that's the journey that we go on. The real treasure,
Taking effective
I
fire.
think, is in that journey of trying.
UAV standing by.
It's in that realization.
Requesting recon flyover.
It's
Copy that.
almost
UAV online and
it's
orbiting
almost
the AO.
impossible to believe that we exist. Right?
Yes, right.
But that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I think that's what I think you miss out. I think if you decide to simplify it because you don't want to face that, you don't want to face the infinity that's out there, and you don't want to
Drop
face
their
those
sniper.
stories, as you said,
Throwing
that you
sniper.
look at your
UAV
finger
is
and
exiting the AO.
ingredients cuts in multiple stars over billions of years. That's to me a joyous and powerful thing to think about.
Yes.
And I think you're missing out if you don't want to face that.
Well, I think the distribution of information has changed so radically over the last couple hundred years, and particularly over the last 20, that you're seeing these trends now where more people are inclined to
Dropping ammo here.
abandon a lot of the, even if you remain religious or remain, you keep a thought
Hostile
or
UAV
belief
in the area.
higher power. People are more inclined to entertain these concepts of science and to take in the understanding of what has been observed and documented and written about among scholars and academics. And there's
Enemy
more
UAV
people
active.
accepting that. If you look at the number of agnostic people now as opposed to 20 years ago, it's rising. It's changing. And I think there's also, because of you and because of Neil deGrasse Tyson and Sean Carroll and all these other people that are public intellectuals that are discussing this kind of stuff, people like myself have a far greater understanding of this than I think people did 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And that trend is continuing, I think, in a very good direction.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. You know, what we should say is that science, we don't know all the answers. So we don't know where the laws of nature came from. We don't know why the universe began in the way that it did, if indeed it had a beginning. So we don't know why the Big Bang was very, very highly ordered, which is ultimately, as Sean Carroll actually, you mentioned him, often points out, and he's right, that the whole difference, the only difference between the past and the future, the so-called arrow of time, is that in the past the universe was really ordered, and it's getting more disordered, and that's that necessary
alive.
state
Friendly UAV
order at
online.
the start of the universe,
Hostile UAV
which
in
is
the
really
area.
the reason that we exist. That's the reason, because the universe began in a particular form. We don't know why that was.
Enemy trophy destroyed.
We will probably find out at some point. Maybe something to do with the laws of nature. But So I'm always careful. I don't want to.
Dropping ammo here.
Science can sometimes sound arrogant, right? It can sometimes sound like it's the discipline of saying to people, "Well, you're not right."
Yes. Yeah.
And it's not the discipline of saying you're not right. It's saying this is what we found out.
Yeah.
So I like to say that it provides a framework within which, if you want to philosophize or you want to do theology or you want to ask these deep questions about why we're here,
Reload.
you have to operate within that framework because it's just an observational framework.
Yes.
So everything we've said is stuff we've discovered. It's not stuff that someone made up, right? We understand nuclear physics. We can build nuclear reactors, for example. So we understand the physics of stars. So we understand that the stars built the carbon and oxygen, and we know how they did it. We can see it because, as I said before, we can. If you look far out into the universe, you're looking way back in time, and as you look back in
UAV
time,
ready
you
for
see less
tasking.
carbon and less oxygen.
Get
So
in
we have a
here hard.
direct observation that in the earliest universe there wasn't any, because we can see it.
Friendly
And now we
VTOL
see that there
entering
is
the
some,
sector.
and we know how it was made. So I think it's important to be humble when you're talking about science. You're not saying this is the way that it is. I mean, you are in a sense, but it's not able to answer the ultimate questions
That
at the moment.
UAV online and
It's
off
not
the
able
air.
to answer even whether the universe had a beginning or not. We don't even know that. And I gave a talk to some
Target's down.
bishops
Lead
in
is
the UK about cosmology, and I said, yeah, that'll be
All Sabre,
great
mission
fun.
accomplished.
And so I went and gave him this talk, and at the end I said, I got some questions. So if the universe is eternal, and it might not have had a beginning,
Je suis pote.
if it's
Qu'est-ce que tu
eternal,
cherches?
what place is there for a
Viens ici.
creator? That-
Viens
that's a
t'asseoir
good
ici, viens.
question.
Right.
They didn't have an answer.
Va chercher la tablette et viens
An
ici.
eternal creator.
Ah,
but
ben
I
non,
think
viens
that
t'asseoir
these-
ici alors sans
it
tablette.
might be eternal,
Right.
and we might discover that. So we don't know at the moment, but we might. So I think my point is that these other human desires, it's very natural to religion's a natural thing, right? People, you see it all across the world in all different cultures. But I think that in the 21st century, religion needs to operate within that framework. If it's going to operate, there are still great mysteries.